Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. After we adopted the new global climate agreement in Paris on the 12th of November last year, in the midst of our celebrations, the spokesperson of the South African delegation quoted the warning words of Nelson Mandela. After climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. And that is true. There is still a long road before us and no time for complacency over last year's success. For we have committed to a major global undertaking. The Paris Agreement went beyond anything we had hoped for. It is a milestone in global climate action and a sign of hope for people across the globe. Particularly so for countries already suffering the impacts of climate change, or those which are especially vulnerable to them, like small developing island states. At the Climate Summit in Paris, we not only agreed to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees, we pledged to make every effort to keep the temperature rise not over 1.5 degrees. There are places in the world where the extent of global warming can make the difference between survival and destruction. Countries such as Bangladesh, the Caribbean, and many Pacific islands. Going back to the image used by Mandela, this makes the hills ahead of us seem that bit steeper. Ladies and gentlemen, the international community has set itself an ambitious goal to achieve greenhouse gas neutrality in the second half of this century. At the same time, we must expect global energy demand to rise by more than 1/3 by 2040. Even today, fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas cause around 2/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions. For us here in Europe and Germany, the Paris Agreement means that we have to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 95% by 2050, compared to 1990. In other words, by that time, our economy and lifestyle must be largely greenhouse gas free. Achieving this transition is a mammoth task with profound implications for policy, economy, and society. No sector will be excluded from this transition, not agriculture, not transport, not the heating or cooling of buildings, and not our manufacturing industries. Above all, however, we must switch our energy supply virtually completely to renewables. For this reason, our Energiewende, as you heard it, our energy transition remains the centerpiece of Germany's climate policy. Ladies and gentlemen, the Paris Agreement is confirmation of our climate policy of the past years. We have shown that fluctuating renewable energy sources can be far more than a mere niche product. Without them, right now, our climate balance would be looking pretty unhealthy. Renewables have become the main component of Germany's energy mix. They already cover around 1/3 of our electricity consumption. Incidentally, when I was here about a year ago, their share still fell short of the 30% mark by about 27-28. And all along, in spite of the doom-saying skeptics, Germany's electricity supply has remained stable and reliable, one of the most reliable in the whole European Union. And no question about it, our energy transition has also been an economic success. If it wasn't for renewables, a great many operations would have ceased and the country would have lost out on many secure jobs. Moreover, renewable energies are becoming more and more competitive. Onshore wind power is now generated for 6 to 9 cents per kilowatt hour, as against electricity from coal and gas-fired power plants, which costs up to 10 cents. And to give a complete picture, a glance at other European countries shows electricity from new nuclear power plants is even much more expensive. Ladies and gentlemen, Germany's energy transition is inextricably linked to the Renewable Energy Sources Act, the EEG. It is this instrument that has made our success to date possible. Because of its unique structure, the EEG has had to be adjusted several times along the way to reflect the changing conditions that its own provisions have brought about. The next amendment of the EEG is now due, and once again we will need to try out new tools. In doing so, we must ensure, in particular, that we continue to consistently expand the renewable sector in future. For we already know that we will need more power, a great deal more power from renewable sources. By 2050, we want to achieve a renewable share in electricity supply that is also in keeping with the goal of a 95% reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions by the same year. That is the core issue to be tackled in our implementation of the Paris Agreement. And there is another aspect. We already know that we can enhance our climate action potential with a combined approach to the electricity, heat, and transport sectors. Up to now, these have, for the most part, been considered separately. But the more we progress with the expansion of renewables, the more important it is to consider how the different sectors can interact with each other in one overall system, thus generating synergies. There are many good ideas out there: heat pumps, stationary fuel cells, hydrogen, power to heat, power to gas, power to liquid, electric mobility using batteries and fuel cells. All of these technologies can play an important role in the electricity market, for instance, as balancing energy to support security of supply and system stability. We believe that linking up the different sectors will give us the ideal conditions to utilize wind and solar power. That would enable renewable energies to become the main primary sources for mobility and heat supply as well. To ensure this succeeds, we need to lay down a few long-term guidelines which apply well beyond the tenure of the current government. We call this our Climate Action Plan 2050. It was already mentioned. In Germany, climate policy enjoys wide cross-party support. That is a valuable asset, and we wish to preserve it. For that reason, a broad public participation process on the Climate Action Plan 2050 is currently underway. I hope to present the plan and have it adopted by the Cabinet before the summer recess. Gearing our climate policy to the long term has paid off, not least to ensure planning security for investment decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, economic development and combating climate change are not incompatible. Sustainable growth is possible. We can generate added value and still respect the ecological boundaries of our planet. We know that other countries are keenly observing Germany's energy transition. Germany's expansion of renewables has helped trigger an irreversible momentum throughout the world, a momentum that is taking us on a new sustainable path. Last year's investments in renewables worldwide reached a record level, with current figures putting them at a new high of $329 billion. More and more major investors are announcing that they are withdrawing from fossil fuels and focusing instead on sustainable investments. We are convinced that our energy transition is one of the most effective climate policy instruments. It raises local added value and creates solid prospects and well-paid jobs. It is a policy that benefits many, and there can be no doubt that future generations will be among the winners. Thank you very much.